Here's another video, and this time I'm looking at tadpoles before they became froglets. If you've seen my last video, then you could see all those wonderful tadpoles that became froglets, and that was just a really wonderful experience. But here, actually in this in this video you can actually see nothing, right? This puddle is empty, but a few moments ago this puddle was crammed full of tadpoles. It was unbelievable. And that white fence there is a construction fence. So here you can see some of the tadpoles that I collected and put into a container. The trouble is, as you can see, that was one tiny puddle that remained. All of the other water evaporated or soaked up into the ground. Before there was a construction fence, this place was really amazing. It would flood with the heavy rain in monsoon season, and it would produce thousands of tadpoles. And here you can see this is a before shot. Clearly it looks black, like jet black, and if you don't look closely you would not know that there were actually tadpoles. You might just walk by and think, oh, why is that water so black? And taking a close look, there were all of these tadpoles, and they were, I don't know, maybe 300 or so inside this little tiny puddle, and they urgently needed rescuing. Clearly, I don't need to even state that. It's just tragic that this kind of situation happened a total of 6 times in the 2 years since the fence was installed. That this place, going from a really good habitat, especially for breeding season for the frogs, it went from really high success with thousands of froglets each year to just failure. Every single time was failure, and I was just so grateful that I could actually find them like this. So if you can hear rain, I'm actually out in the forest right now. I'm sort of like waiting the rain out. So I thought I will, make this video while I've got time to kill. I can't really go anywhere unless I want to get soaked. So if you can hear rain, that's why. Yeah. So on the ground here, I was also looking for tadpoles. So yeah, as you can see in this little cup, there are a few more. I was always busy trying to collect as many as I could. Some that I could keep in my home, and many I had to find other places. Even a drain. I made another video, and I released some into a particular drain where I knew tadpoles could survive. So these ones, I was hoping they would be healthy. After being under a lot of stress, it's hard to know. But oh, look, you can see there in this video, there is a little diving beetle that will feed on the tadpoles. So it was my first year to start finding little aquatic beetles like that, and that's pretty awesome. Those beetles, they can actually obviously live in the water, they can swim very well, they can climb out of the water. If the water dries up, they can crawl around, and they can fly and find other water too. And for now, in this shot here, the tadpoles had enough water that it would be okay for a while, but actually it was surprising how quickly this water would just disappear. So I wasn't going to let them die. Actually, I remember my whole rescue work started about 4 or 5 years ago when I found tadpoles on the pavement, the sidewalk, in tiny puddles. Some of them were in such shallow puddles that they could not move. And so that was actually how my whole kind of amphibian rescue work started. And I can't actually believe that it's been 5 years since then. So there is that darkling beetle again. So it's really fast. And did I say darkling beetle? Sorry, I mean a diving beetle. Sorry, a diving beetle. Yeah, and they get, I guess, called the name because they can dive underwater. They're good at hunting. Here is another day where the water had dried up, and you can see here there's just a tiny amount of water, and under the leaves there was a little bit more water, but this was really a lifeline. If I didn't catch these today, this time, then they would surely have died. So I was trying to scoop them out with a little cup, but it was not so easy because there wasn't much water, and I was worried about if I would injure them in the process. But I got them little by little. I got quite a few, and even in the tiny little puddles like this, there were more than I expected. Unfortunately, I couldn't get every last single one. That was just impossible. I tried my best to get as many as I could, but there was always going to be some that would probably end up perishing, unfortunately. And I know that in the wild, that in natural ecosystems, if for example if there's a drought, if there's not rain for a long time, that puddles can dry up naturally, or pools of water will disappear. And under natural circumstances, that happens, and it's sometimes unavoidable. But I feel on this occasion that it's kind of a man-made problem, because before the construction fence went up, this was a really good place for frogs, and afterwards, since the fence is installed, it's never been the same outside of the land. And as this is on my doorstep, I feel like I couldn't ignore the problem. Somebody asked me a little while ago, why do you help the animals? Well, I mean, I guess maybe that's a good question, but, well, why do I help them? Because, well, let me explain to you in a moment, but first, you can see what I was doing here is I was just adding a bit of dechlorinated water, just so that I could actually maybe give them a lifeline, give them a bit more water to help them going a bit longer. To be honest, it didn't really help, because actually the next time I went, the water had all gone. So yeah, I tried, but it didn't make a whole lot of difference, especially when the weather in Korea in July and August is above 30 Celsius, and this year in 2026 it was actually even hotter. Korea had its hottest days of the year, so the water wouldn't have lasted long, not at all. But it did help me scoop some of them out, the ones I could rescue with a bit of more water. But why do I rescue animals? Well, I just think that animals, well, it's their planet. It's not only our planet. We share this world with all of the other animals. And most animals in this world are suffering because of humans, because of the way we live our lives. And I'm not excluded from that. I'm not perfect, and I'm part of the problem too. And so I just feel kind of a sense of I need to do something. If I see a problem and I can do something, then I'm going to make sure I go out of my way to try and fix it. And so there was nobody else going there to help the tadpoles, and I knew that they would die if I didn't do anything, so why not just help them? It just comes natural to me. A little story, I suppose, just a little tiny little story would be like, why do I have that mindset? Well, I guess my mum told me that when I was 3 years old, I was in the garden with my dad, and my dad was putting down pavement in the garden. We removed the grass and putting down pavestones, and there were lots of wood lice. And I was not letting my dad put the stones down on the ground until I rescued them. And my mum said I rescued hundreds. So actually, the mindset I got today has not changed one bit since I was that 3-year-old child. And another story my mum told me was when I was at primary school or junior school, whichever it was, they had tadpoles. They were rearing tadpoles at school, and some child deliberately was killing them, and I was like apparently really angry and hurt that he did that. And so I think, like, why do I do what I do? Basically, that is just who I am and who I always have been. I just haven't been around nature until I really stepped out of my own country, to be honest. So that kind of, I don't know, that the inner child in me has never really went away. So I find that really fascinating. But here I am today, long time later, I'm getting old, and I'm still out and about, helping the animals, doing what I can. And it's tadpoles again, just like when I was young and I was kind of angry when they were being killed. This time I'm sort of like, you know, I don't know, difficult emotions when I see them struggling, especially that it's all man-made. And since I've been rescuing the tadpoles, I've been rearing them at my home just 2 years now, and I really hope that I can continue next year as well. And next year will be even more successful because 2 years of experience and some difficulties this year in rearing too many. I had a little bit of a disaster with some of them. So I've lived and learned, and next year will be a much better experience with more knowledge gained. As you can see here, now they're in a tank in my home, and I just want to say that you should not put too many together. I must emphasize that if you decide to rear tadpoles, you've got to limit the numbers in one tank because it will cause problems, and if they get sick, then that's probably it. There is most likely no chance they will get better. I learned the hard way. I had too many. Not in this tank. This was very temporary. This tank here was just a 1 or 2 days until I figured out what I was going to do. It was just basically quick rescue and then make plans. But I did keep too many together, and the water quality deteriorated and they got sick. And even though I sort of intervened, helped clean up the water, transfer them into another tank with some of the water and then lots of dechlorinated water, it didn't really work, and the die-off continued day after day. So I was left with only a small number of healthy tadpoles in the end. So yeah, I must emphasize, do not keep too many together. Oh, and also there you can see there is an aquatic snail. So I do keep aquatic snails. I was not originally by choice that I was collecting them. It was just by chance. When I was collecting tadpoles, I was also collecting unknowingly little snails. That's kind of really pretty actually. The shells got really nice colors and markings, but let me tell you, they reproduce a lot, and I ended up with so many snails, and that also could be another problem. If you got too many snails, they might produce waste. A number of snails is healthy for the tank because they can also break down waste from the tadpoles and anything else that's in the tank. But yeah, too many can become a problem, so you have to manage that. I end up putting them in a safe place outside where there are the same species already, so it makes no difference. It was good that I guess they're a native species. If they're not, well, they are already here, so I'm gonna just put them where a good place where they already exist anyway. So I don't know, native or not, I'm not entirely sure. But it was fun because my tadpole tank had a wide variety of animals in them as well. And it's something quite relaxing about watching all the tadpoles swimming around, living, doing what they do, feeding and hiding when I tried to find them as well. They would often hide behind the leaves and stones. So you can see this was an example. This is one of my tanks, and you can see there are way too many tadpoles in here, and this is not sustainable for a long period. This was very temporary. I think in one tank maybe 20 to 30 tadpoles is more than sufficient. The average water temperature in the tank also was about 25 Celsius, although sometimes it rose to 27 because I was using my spare room, and in Korea it's very warm and humid in summer, so I had my window open and I didn't use the aircon, so I allowed the natural warmth to come in, and so sometimes it was up to 27 degrees, which was actually still a safe temperature. I think anything over 29-30 Celsius would be a bit of a worry. But 27 meant probably faster growth, and they did grow a lot. Some of them here are feeding on a supplementary algae waiver, which they went crazy for. They really loved this. So I give them a waiver once or twice a day. Now, I wouldn't keep it in the tank for too long. I think 2 to 3 hours maximum. If you keep it in too long, then you do risk that the water quality will deteriorate over time. So try to limit the supplementary food to about 2 or 3 hours maximum. But here you can see they go really wild for these algae waivers, so it was a perfect treat for them. On the bottom of the tank I included sand to start, and then I had lots of pebbles, and then I put some of the leaves from the ground, and I also ordered some aquatic plants too. So it was quite a nice looking tank actually. It wasn't just a plain tank, it was actually like a little habitat I created for them. But again, I emphasize, you cannot keep this many tadpoles long term in one tank, because this will guarantee failure, unfortunately, so must be careful there. My plan was to keep them for a couple of days and then choose which ones I would keep. I would keep a handful of them, and a lot of them, if not separated into other tanks, I would then place them in another place. I chose a drain, which sounds really bad, but actually the drain sustained life pretty well. And it was a drain next to a forest. So it was at the foot of the forest. It was a long drain system, so you could actually walk inside it, and there were all kinds of critters along the way, like woodlice and beetles and spiders and sometimes frogs in there. A snake would come down. I even sadly found a dead mole. There was a duck in there with ducklings, and I tried to rescue them. I tried to call the rescue center. They came, and well, they couldn't find them, and neither could I in the end. So I guess unfortunately those ducklings might have perished. So like, it's really the drain is, yeah, I see a lot of sad things in that drain, unfortunately, with animals, but it's also a really good micro habitat for tadpoles and frogs, and I can see that this year and last year tadpoles did become froglets, and the froglets, they had lots of little critters to feed on, and they grew really well. So that's why I chose to place lots of tadpoles there, because actually, although they would be trapped in the drain, I could go there and collect them and rescue them as little frogs once they left the water. So I knew that I was capable of doing that, and I'd have the time, so it was not a worry. Had I not been able to go to the drain, I might not have been able to choose that place. Trouble is, some of these tadpoles were also endangered species, and so I didn't know many places where they could go, and it was actually really sad, because the only place that I knew that I could put them that was safe was actually a drain. That in the entire region that I've been helping frogs, that they've lost so much habitat and so much wetland. A lot of the fields are just becoming construction sites. In fact, all of the endangered species that I find, all the endangered Corolla borealis frogs, they all seem to be living on future construction sites, and it's pretty tragic. And so the only option was to put them in a drain. And yeah, that is quite a sad state of affairs, and that's why I've been getting more active and involved in animal rescue, conservation, and trying to make change in the region that I live. The two species that I found were obviously what I just said, Corolla borealis, which is the boreal digging frog, an endangered species in South Korea, which is not endangered in China. It's quite a common frog in a wide area, but in Korea, because of habitat loss, then it's become, I think it was endangered. It became endangered, it was designated endangered in 1989, and well, so that's about 3.5 decades. So Yeah, the situation has not improved, and actually it's got worse because in China, I think what I found was probably the tip of the iceberg. I found a number of places where these frogs were inhabiting, but I just wonder how many more places were they living at before construction even started. So it's good that it's really good that I started off finding those tadpoles 5 years ago, because it kind of in some way changed my life, and it sort of helped me realize my own little conservation dream. So what started off as just merely picking up tadpoles with a plastic spoon, placing them in a container and trying to give them a second chance, I remember one middle-aged man stopping talking and sort of like, just wondering what I was doing. Some foreign person in the street picking up something off the ground with a spoon. It clearly looked a bit odd, but he was very kind and supportive, and he said, I think you've taken on a tough job. I think he was right, because 5 years later, and I've rescued 20,000 plus frogs, and also other species too. And that number doesn't include eggs and tadpoles. I don't know the true number, to be honest. It's kind of wild. But all of that, all of what I've done, it led to this new hobby of rearing tadpoles in my home. And I have to say, long story short, it's been a wonderful experience, and I never tire of watching the tadpoles grow into frogs. It's just such a wonderful, I have to say, kind of like magical experience. The magic or the wonder of nature is just, it's so exciting and fun. And I have to say, if you get a chance to rear tadpoles, it's certainly worth trying. I'll be making more tadpole videos soon, but for now, this is it for this one, and thanks for watching.